Hello, everyone. Welcome to the end of the year episode of Downstage with Bryan and Hayden. So, yeah, it's the end of 2021. We have essentially a few more, literally a few more weeks, like literally 2 more weeks of the year, and after this week, especially with the holidays coming up, it was like I figured it'd be a great time to just go for a nice little winter break, come back after the year and just go like, okay, you know what? We're back. It's like so this will probably be the last episode for a while, give or take maybe for the next month or so. Maybe or it depends. Especially going into January and going like it's like January January in terms of entertainment, it's like kind of goes slow unless unless it's like the holiday season. So it's like after the holiday season, it's like that's when it's like it just goes like slow. So yeah. So as I said, this is the last episode. So we're gonna probably do a more of a longer episode because not only some things just randomly that are happening in the world of entertainment, but also the fact that uh, we're going to do a best and worst of 2021, so that might take a little while. You know. So yeah, Aiden, how you been?
I've been all right. I've just been, writing my own scripted series like I've been, doing for the past while now. I've been having readings of that. It has been going amazing.
Hmm, nice.
And yeah, so and one day probably in 2022 I might start pitching it. I want to at least have like the third season written before I feel confident about like starting to pitch it.
Nice. Because I think I should start doing that the same thing with my scripted series of the one that we talked about like a while back with the main character being like a contract killer that's like in the vein of Dexter, but also has a like his own little like darkness in darknessism, darkness idom, and stuff like that too. But I'm still like outlining this the story for the first season, so I want to make sure it's like perfectly enough to be like, okay, it's perfect now, and that's why I'm having the holiday season to not only not worry about all the show and recording my other call time, the primary podcast, you know, and also I'm working too again, so it's like I have a new job, all that stuff. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I now have time to actually go about and do all this stuff without really worrying about other things
Other
that happen.
commitments and yeah, other life responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my goal is to basically have the second season finished before the end of this year, which I'm already like on track to do anyway. And then of course, yeah, we'll probably and yeah, like with Christmas too, it's like yeah, that's definitely gonna give me some more free time just to go ahead and like take care of that.
Yeah. And speaking of responsibilities, with great power comes great responsibility, and with greater responsibility comes a new Spider-Man movie. So No Way Home is about to be released tomorrow. I'm not sure like what the direct line of when it comes out tomorrow, or if it comes out on
I,
Thursday.
well, I heard for tomorrow that will be the case for the UK. Because one of my friends in the UK told me that I think on the 15th it'll come out then, and then like they get it like earlier than we do here. But then what I know Marvel's done in the past is they do a Thursday night release, like kind of like a sort of pre-release, I guess, before the official release day. So my
Yeah,
assumption is they'll probably do that again because I think they've been doing that for a while anyway. So I think they'll do that again with Spider-Man No Way Home, and then of course the official release on Friday.
yeah, because I have the same thing. Whereas it's like on Thursday, I have my ticket to see Spider-Man on Thursday, and I'm hoping it'll go so well in terms of being hopefully not packed theater because the last time I went to go see a movie was Ghostbusters Afterlife, and that only had like maybe 2 or 3 people, also myself and my brother. So I'm hoping at least
Oh, it's gonna be packed.
like not
Yeah,
packed to the gills, but I'm just hoping it'll be like packed enough to actually have people actually responding back to the screen, the screen and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, those reactions.
It's not gonna be like the reactions I heard when I heard Endgame and stuff like that too. And it's like kids just like randomly saying some of the lines like because they saw it in the commercials. Like I literally remember a kid going, "Whatever it takes, man, and whatever it takes, mom, whatever it takes." And
I
then
almost feel like you're gonna get more of that with this one because it's Spider-Man, and the fact that they're bringing in all those past Spider-Man villains from the other Spider-Man movies.
yeah,
And I still believe that we're gonna see the other Spider-Man too.
mm-hmm.
And of course, when that happens, the whole theater is just gonna go in an insane uproar.
Yeah.
Like literally, other theaters nearby are gonna hear it and think, "Oh my God, is there a fire going on or something?"
Is there One Direction thing happening that we don't know of? Oh wait, hang on. Is One Direction so popular? Yeah.
Is that still relevant?
Well, the singers and all that stuff are still relevant. I know Harry Styles is still relevant, and
he's so relevant. He's gonna be in Marvel too.
yeah, it's like, god damn, it's like how did that happen?
Billie Eilish?
So, sorry, cursing God, but it's one of those days. But yeah, No Way Home is the end of the Homecoming trilogy, as Tom Holland has pointed out. Like that's what he called his new, like the past couple of Spider-Man movies with him as Spider-Man as the Homecoming trilogy, and I do hope that it does bring not only a conclusion to these three films, but a conclusion to the story that they've been trying to do with the first with Homecoming, where it's just like it is that progression of Spider-Man, Peter Parker becoming the neighborhood-friendly Spider-Man. But it's like it's like that. That's the thing about the Marvel stuff, especially with the MCU Spider-Man, where it's just like I like what they're doing with Spider-Man, but at the same time, I would just go and look at other Spider-Man products and go, that's what I'm looking for Spider-Man. That's what I'm seeing, the type of Spider-Man that I miss. I miss reading or miss hearing the very quippy New York humor type of Spider-Man, and like I'm just waiting for them to actually like really, really dive into that stuff. And it's like a lot of times with this Spider-Man, it does feel like they keep on laying thick on the responsibility and stuff like that too. It's like the humor, like he does have his humor. Like there's no qualms about it. Tom Holland is a very genuinely hilarious dude.
Well, yes and no, because they seem to keep playing him as the sort of awkward teenager when he's Spider-Man. When like this is one of the few things that the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies got right.
Yeah.
Is he is so quippy. Like he makes that's why he made a perfect Spider-Man because because they understood when to actually make him be. No, you think about this though. Like the way he acts as Spider-Man is the way Spider-Man would act.
Yeah.
So and that's what actually, yeah, that's why he was a great Spider-Man, not as good as not as good of a Peter Parker. And that's what I think Marvel needs to try and figure out how to do with Spider-Man because they keep playing his humor kind of safe. They keep playing safe into it with like this, like, oh, he's just a kid, he's just an awkward kid, and it's like, well, he is, but wouldn't he also feel confident because he literally has super strength. He can stick to walls. He has a spider sense that can alert him to danger. And of course, he made his own webbing. Wouldn't he be a little more confident in himself because of that aspect? So maybe his Spider-Man could be a little more confident and just be a little more kind of playful and joking, and not just like awkward all the time when he's trying to just.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when you do, and it is like really odd how the idea of Spider-Man being played safe, where it's just like, okay, maybe we should play it safe, because it's like it's weird because with Spider-Man, especially in the MCU, that they've been playing safe with this character for the past like several movies, and the time I felt like he did become like the Spider-Man he felt like was probably towards the end of Homecoming, oddly enough, where he lifts off that building and he actually feels like Spider-Man, and he saved. I was about to say he saved Green Goblin. He saves the Vulture into not dying and all that stuff. It's like that's the type of Spider-Man I love to see. And then
and the fact he has to do it without that, that suit he got from, Tony Stark. He actually further emphasizing the whole he has to act with the great power, great responsibility thing.
Yeah,
but then it seems like they kind of forgot about the responsibility aspect in Far From Home. Well, because it's like he has those glasses or whatever. He ends up calling a drone strike on his bus. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I think a lot. I think what.
And actually, I think that's actually the biggest thing I've noticed with these three movies. They play around with the fact that he doesn't actually seem to be responsible.
Yeah.
Because this feels like a Spider-Man who never heard with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, and
because they never mentioned Uncle Ben, they barely mentioned that, and it feels like that never seemed to have really come up.
And the only
so I feel like it's one of those things where it's like they actually need to do something to reinforce great power comes great responsibility in No Way Home. And so that way, then they can actually have a Spider-Man who isn't just an awkward teenager. They can actually essentially have a Spider-Man growing up, learning from his mistakes in the next movies.
And if you do want to see a great Peter Parker in the MCU, just watch Marvel's What If and watch the zombie episode of What If.
That was a great Peter Parker.
Yeah, and that actually felt like the Peter Parker that I know and love. It was like a combination of not only it has the Tom Holland face and type of voice, but also has the genuineness of Tobey's Peter Parker and the humor of Andrew's Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And just really combining into one perfectness Peter Parker. And not only that, he has the headless Scott Lang helping him out somehow, still alive. I never questioned that, actually. I never questioned to see how he was still alive.
I mean, do we question how all the heads of the presidents in Futurama are alive?
Actually, no. No, I have not. But yeah, it's and don't get me wrong, No Way Home looks like it's going to be an amazing film, pun intended, but I'm just hoping that, with Doctor Strange in it, they did that he does call out Peter for a lot of his bullshit and just which is ironic enough.
It's so fair though, because he does create a lot of the problems that he has to deal with. Yeah. Literally, there was a clip that released on IGN, I think it was, where Doctor Strange is doing the spell, but then not Toby, the Tom Holland Spider-Man starts interfering with it by telling him all these requirements he needs for it, and it's like, okay, maybe you should have been more clear with what you actually needed from Doctor Strange before you told him, make everyone forget about me. Because I see people commenting, oh no, this is Doctor Strange's fault. How is it Doctor Strange's fault? All Tom Holland Spider-Man asked him to do verbatim was make people forget that I was Spider-Man. That he never said beforehand to include specific people to remember him. It's only when he literally started doing the spell where it's like, oh, hey, actually, I need this person to remember me and that person and that person. It's like, damn it, kid, you're screwing up the spell. It wasn't made to work like this. You should have told me beforehand.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh man, they're not gonna tell him, that's not Doctor Strange. That's just Strange Supreme. That's not that's just his evil twin. It's because people telling
but that doesn't make any sense too, because then that destroys the point of What If being multiverse, its own separate entity.
Yeah. I would love if the Black Widow from What If pops up in the MCU as the new Black Widow and whatnot, but that kind of
it negates her sacrifice.
Yeah, not only that, but also it negates the Yelena. Is it Yelena or Yelena?
I think it's Yelena.
Yelena's role of the new Black Widow. I'm like, you have Florence Pugh, who, by the way, Instagram actually blocked her from actually posting about how she was, about how her character of Yelena pops up in Hawkeye in what was it, episode 4? Yeah, episode 4, and they're like, oh, by the way, boom, they block her. I'm like, that's kind of stupid, Not only is she one of the actors in the show, it's like Instagram just blocks her from like that, of her showplaying that of a character that she has just played just like recently in this year.
Mm-hmm.
Be enough to just block her from actually posting the picture.
Also, it's so ridiculous too because it's like I've seen plenty of accounts on Instagram post spoilers, and some of them have barely gotten any repercussions for it.
Yeah,
So like, why is this one so different?
yeah, it's weird because of just like the notion of, and again, this actually goes into a great segue into the next thing about No Way Home, is that no spoilers, and they had the whole thing with Spider-Man going shh. And for one thing, I do welcome spoilers. I mean, there are spoilers that I do want to like keep in mind of like, okay, this is a movie I want to see. No spoilers for me. But if there's a movie that I'm anticipating and I kind of know what they got to do with it, it's like, why are they gotta say no spoilers when it's like the last time no Marvel did the no spoilers thing was I believe was Thanos remain Thanos demands your silence, and it was like either on Infinity War or Endgame. I think it was probably Endgame or Infinity War. Well, one of those two. And I'm like, I understand Thanos demanding your silence, but this is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a character that is just like he's Marvel's everyman. He's that.
Like have it be Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin.
Yeah, at
Like
least
that would be perfect.
At least with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and he wants your silence. Okay. You know what? You don't have to. You don't even have to have Willem Dafoe speak. You just have him just like Lily, just going, and just go like, okay, we won't say shit about in the movie. Okay. Or have the people in character like Jamie Foxx come up and just say as Electro or something like that, or Alfred Molina's Doc Ock doing this like we demand your silence, and just have like one of those little tentacles thing going, and then again, and then
and then the tentacle could just go into the camera, like, and have someone who is about to say something like off screen, and then zoop right into the camera. And then just like goes like the whatever it is, like the snowflake whatever thing when the signal goes out, and then just a custom screen being like, please no spoilers.
I just realized when I did the whole Green Goblin thing just now, I literally just did the whole thing from Zoolander when he pops out from in the coal mine of just scaring his father. He's like, ha!
Yeah, Zoolander demands your silence, and it's like, how are you relevant to this, Zoolander?
But yeah, I understand Marvel trying to be like settle down with the spoilers or something like that, or just have Kevin Ferengi just like come to your doorway and just give you the evil eye, or just do like the scene from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back where it's just like you just see Kevin Ferengi just like beating the crap of some guy who's like, oh, you gotta gotta talk about spoilers, okay.
Or even better, like J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh
yeah. Like you're not gonna spoil this movie because I'm gonna be the one who spoils this movie before you do.
It's just odd how they're talking about no spoilers for a film like Spider-Man, and it's kind of like a movie that people have been anticipating for the past like say year and a half, especially with this pandemic and how
and then when they started revealing that they were going to be bringing back the villains from some of the past Spider-Man movies, like that was the first indication that's like, okay, this one feels like it's going to be a much more bigger deal.
Yeah.
And then of course the rumors of, okay, Charlie Cox is going to be in there, and then that got confirmed essentially. And then of course all the speculation, okay, what about the other Spider-Man? And it's basically an open secret at this point that they're going to be in it. So it's like I understand it too, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like Marvel is so formulaic that even if we are spoiled, it doesn't actually. It's not like we're actually going to be changed by It's not like it actually alters anything in any way from the movie, because all the trailers that have come out already pretty much tell me what the story is going to be. Spider-Man's identity gets revealed. He has to deal with the repercussions of that, and also being framed for murdering Mysterio. Yeah. And then he has to try and make everyone forget about him because that's his best option to try and fix it. Because I think Ned reminds him he knows a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Then he screws up the spell. Yes, Tom Holland Spider-Man screws up the spell. So then it creates that multiverse. Yep. Then it creates that multiverse problem. And then they have to work to fix it. Then it all gets worse. And then they have a big battle. And eventually the good guys are going to win.
Maybe. I don't know. We don't know.
I mean, like some of the like speculations that I've heard, I'm like, it makes sense that the good guys would win, but I feel like there are going to be some complications that Peter is going to have to deal with afterwards.
And
like he's going to win, but it'll come at a cost. That's what I feel like. That's my prediction of what I feel like is going to happen.
And not only him, but also Doctor Strange as well, because it will probably lead into the multiverse of madness, and especially with if Wanda comes out and
well, she's definitely showing up. Like we know that for sure. But yeah.
Okay. That's news to me.
oh no, they can Marvel confirmed that like a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
And then it's like when you see how WandaVision's first season ends, it's like they already are kind of telling us what her motivation in the movie is going to be.
Yeah. Going into hell and getting our kids back. So.
Yeah.
Hey, finally, we're gonna see Mephisto.
Yeah.
Mephisto.
Yeah. Maybe Mephisto was just the friends we made along the way.
And it happens to spell out their names. Michael.
Michael. Edward.
Peter.
Peter.
Hawk. Okay.
Hayden. Isaiah. Steve. Trevor. Otis. There we go.
But yeah, with Far From Home, with No Way Home coming out on.
Also, that's why they need to stop with the home names.
Home thing, yeah.
Like, oh my god, that's so annoying. Just constantly mixing up the names. It's like, be a little more creative with the titles, please.
Oh, this actually reminds me of a great thing I just saw in regard to the Matrix. So Keanu, and this relates back to No Way Home and Far From Home type of like the home base thing. Keanu Reeves was on the Graham Norton show, and he was talking about the movie, and then he calls it the Matrix Resolutions, and then he goes, the Matrix Resurrections, and he just stops and goes, guys, it's very early. I'm in LA. It's very early. in the typical Keanu Reeves type of way of saying it, and of course he's like giddy as anything when he says it too, because I'm pretty sure people who are going to see the Matrix Resurrections are probably going to say Revolutions by accident, because that's a previous movie. So it's like, it'd be like, oh, Reloaded, Resurrection. See what I mean? Resolutions and then Resurrections, and people are going like, one ticket to see the Matrix Resurrections. It's like, it's just, I know it follows the RE type of theme of those names, but it's like, and the same thing with Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. I mean, if you had called it from like, say, Homeward Bound or Home is Where the Heart Is or something like that, probably would have been a much easier name, or just simply just like Spider-Man Now Home or something like that, or Spider-Man Go Home. Spider-Man Go Home, damn it.
Spider-Man Homeless.
Actually, Spider-Man Go Home actually feels like a nasty title of. It's basically saying Spider-Man Go Away. If you had called it Spider-Man Go Home, but that's just me. I'm a creative person. As I say, as I drink my drink.
Yeah, Spider-Man Home Alone. And I can't wait for Matrix Relocation.
But yeah. Now, as we go away from the Spider-Man stuff, another interesting tidbit that I saw a couple of days ago was that Ben Affleck's new movie was originally coming out on January 14th of 2022, and it was going to be released by 20th Century Studios and New Regency, and it was essentially an erotic thriller starring him and my crush, Anna de Armas, and now it's actually going to be streaming on Hulu on the domestically, meaning in the basically in America, but Amazon will be streaming it overseas. So I have no idea why they. I mean, one, it's January. They could easily have just put it out there and not really worry about it, like worrying about making money or something like that. I mean, if it's a large, if it was a large uh budget or something like that, I can understand why they do it, but the whole plot of the movie is like it's basically Affleck and Armas are playing a married couple, playing mind games with each other when people around them start people around them start like dropping dead. So
this feels like a weird sequel to Gone Girl.
well, it is an erotic thriller, so it does have that very Gone Girl type of esque because apparently, they the couple in the story are like in a very loveless marriage. They're about to get divorced, so they decide to take on lovers and all that stuff. And so it's like first off, Ben Affleck, how dare you try to say you're in a loveless marriage with Ana de Armas in a movie? I'm like, how dare you? She's just gorgeous. I mean, come on. Like, I can understand why.
Well, I mean, it is Ben Affleck.
Yes.
No offense, Ben Affleck, but
Ben Affleck over here is like, son of a bitch. Like,
yeah, Ben Affleck is just like, you're the reason why I drink Hayden. But no, yeah.
I feel sorry.
Also good that he, worked on, the alcohol addiction. Proud of him for, recognizing he needed help and he got it.
Yeah, and apparently Ana de Armas was also the reason why he got some of that help too. So it was like,
well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so like apparently that was the reason why he was getting that help anyway, because she was like, I think she was pushing him into getting into a recovery phase, but I think Affleck was still battling his demons, and then they broke up, and now he's back with J-Lo, I think, or they.
I think they just got back. Yeah, I saw a headline like a couple days ago that it looks like they're back.
Yeah, so it's like it's the 2000s all over again, but it's like 20 years again. 20 years later, it's like 2000s all over again. But yeah, I honestly don't understand why, unless they're just fearing the fact that it's not going to do any money. I mean, yeah, it's an erotic thriller. Yes, it stars Ben Affleck, and Affleck hasn't really been a household drawer in like years because like you just brought up Gone Girl, and Gone Girl was a smash hit success because not only of Fincher's work, Fincher's work in the movie, but also has an amazing cast like rounded out. So not only was he around other cast members who actually made that film their own, but trying to think of a movie where Ben Affleck made previously that just starred him and maybe a couple others where he was like the top drawer, and it wasn't really like a box office smash success because he did do not Run on Mine, the bootlegger movie he did like
yeah.
It wasn't.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And that was like a passion project of his, and like
that was a weird one. I got to be honest.
And yeah, well, it was based off a book, and it was a book that was like maybe 300 pages that he tried to condense into like a 2.5 hour movie. So
yeah, like they definitely had a pacing problem with that one because it felt like they were trying to make a certain character a villain, but then it's like they kind of kill him seemingly halfway off, and it's like, okay, who's kind of the antagonist here? It doesn't really feel like there is one, to be honest. Now.
Yeah, and also it's also a Prohibition era movie, so that's even harder to do because there's a lot of Prohibition era movies, and some of them are very, great.
And then you got, of course, like, you're competing with Boardwalk Empire, which is probably the most like synonymous with like a Prohibition era, kind of like show or movie.
Yeah, and then you just do Live by Night. Okay, Live by Night.
Mm.
And yeah, it's like you have like the last time he starred in a movie that was him starring in a movie was The Way Back, which was a sports movie like last year, and
Oh, sorry, it's my phone.
okay, no problem. And and a second.
You're
No,
sorry, what?
No, I had myself muted and I decided to play up the mute thing, the mute button thing. But I was trying to say, well, I blow my nose for a couple of seconds. You continue on talking about Live by Night.
Okay, yeah. So it was definitely an odd movie. It definitely suffered from like some pacing issues, and it had an interesting cast. But I feel like they were trying to do too much with only 2.5 hours. I feel like they would have had better luck if they actually tried to make it like some sort of HBO miniseries or something.
Yeah, and again, it's like Affleck, if he isn't doing like a, because and I will say Affleck has done some great movies in the past, like before the whole Justice League or what have you call it. The Accountant was an amazing movie.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and Gone Girl was again amazing. And then you have Argo, and then something like before that, with Runner, which I haven't really seen, but I heard it was okay for the most part. But Affleck can carry a movie, but I just don't understand why they decide to shelf it, because are they thinking it's gotta be like doing poorly because when it's January, it's not gonna do any business or anything. Far From Home is still gonna be playing out its run over the next like couple of months or something like that. Especially if it goes onto Disney Plus.
Yeah,
I mean, not Disney Plus. I'm sorry. The Disney doesn't have a deal to have it on Disney Plus for a while, so it's gonna be on Stars. Like it's gotta be in the theaters for a while.
And also you have to like keep in mind that like Matrix is going to be competing with them, and then The King's Man is going to be competing with that as well.
Yeah.
So it really does show that like clearly there just wasn't enough faith in this, Ben Affleck movie. Because like literally, this is literally the first time hearing of it. Like I've not seen any kind of trailer for this movie at all. So either they really just didn't have enough faith in it to actually market it.
Yeah. And this is the first time I remember, because the only thing I remembered about this movie was the fact that this is the movie that him and Armas like hooked up on, because they were doing the movie, and then were dating during the movie, and like once the movie was done they were still dating, and then they kind of like ended things right as COVID was coming around, stuff like that too. So it was like, but still, it's like you make a movie and then suddenly it's shelved for whatever reason, and then they decide to put it on streaming service because they feel like it's gonna like do less better, and it's like they figured if it's on streaming service, it'll be like they don't have to worry about the box office revenue, or so it's like, yeah, they don't have to worry about the box office revenue being like 10 million in that opening 5 million, or what have you.
Yeah, because this feels like a movie where if they did actually put it in theaters, they were going to take a big hit. It sounds like it's definitely going to be a major hit to them if they did.
Yeah, and
so again, like, yeah, the safer option would definitely be just like putting it on like streaming services, and then just essentially hoping people stumble upon it.
Yeah, it's like, especially since Hulu is a very big thing, and
Amazon Prime too.
Yeah, Prime too but that's like overseas, so it's like,
so it does kind of cover their bases that way too.
Yeah, and
also all anyone needs is like a VPN anyway.
Oh yeah, but what in the Wikipedia? I mean, not Wikipedia. It says that the box office revenue for the budget was like $48.9 million. So yeah, I can understand if it's like they don't want to put it into like a box office bomb type of thing, where it's like, it's Ben Affleck helming another movie. And two, it's also an erotic thriller. Erotic thrillers have really not been a mainstay in film for a while. Like the last erotic thriller was probably Gone Girl, and I'm probably sure. I mean, there are probably other erotic thrillers, but that that was probably in. I mean, there are probably other erotic thrillers, but give or take,
it definitely has lost its popularity.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't seem to have the kind of sustainability, because it's like it's just a tricky thing, I feel like, to try and do an erotic thriller.
Yeah, and also erotic thrillers nowadays, it's like, I think the last erotic thriller that I remember that came out in theaters, aside from Gone Girl, was probably, oh yeah, The Voyeurs, but that was an Amazon movie. But everything else aside from Gone Girl was probably the
Hopefully you can't hear the stuff going on behind me.
yeah, off and on. Yeah, and it does bring a good question. Is like the erotic thriller genre has not been around for like years, and the last time it does like come out, it doesn't really do well because of it's it's a genre that really hasn't done a lot since maybe the mid-90s. So it definitely feels like it's like one of those things where it's just like, oh, let's just try and re-emulate and like, and again, uh Gone Girl wasn't an erotic thriller. It just was a thriller itself, but it had some erotic scenes because he's having an affair with a younger student, and he's not with his wife, and it's sort of like that sort of thing. But at the same time,
it's like if it's an erotic thriller, they really don't play too much into the eroticness.
Yeah,
only a little bit, just to get the point, just enough to get the point across, I should say.
or just enough to get the R rating.
Yeah. No, actually, the only reason really I think it has the R rating is that one scene with Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh yeah.
In that insanely bloody scene.
Oh yeah.
Like I was genuinely surprised when I saw that, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of see how this is going, and then that happens. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why it's R rated.
Yeah, and
the only other reason I could think it was R rated is when he's like, when we see him having the affair with the other woman, then she takes off her top, and hey, there's her exposed breasts.
Yeah, and the fact that Affleck does, I was about to say, does get. No, I mean there is like nudity in some of the thing, but I think like with some of the nudity, man, because they don't like what I do about it.
So sorry, I think the neighbors are doing something. It was like close to the house, so it's like super loud.
Yeah, I know it's.
I'm like trying this mute on the microphone, so you probably hear it now. So let's see. Do you hear it now? Do you hear me now?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Damn it, this thing is broken.
Yeah, I know.
Like, don't put a mute button if you're not actually gonna mute.
But yeah, the trouble of doing a podcast of sometimes is like that sort of thing. But anyway, Ironic Thriller has like run its course, and I think that especially with Ben Affleck's cast, and they try to do it's Ben Affleck, it's Ana de Armas, it's like guaranteed to put some people into watching the movie, but at the same time, it's also a genre that hasn't really been like popularized and like at least in the mid '90s. And by the time the mid '90s hit, the erotic thriller was really gone, and like it literally was like literally gone, and no one really like after the mid '90s and stuff like that too. It's like no one really wanted to do erotic thriller because it was like you could only do so much with that genre without going back to the well and trying to figure out something new. And
also, I want to kind of just like on a side note, I want to say it is awesome that Ana de Armas is getting so many more of these like great roles now.
Oh yeah,
like she's becoming a great she's becoming one of those breakout stars, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, and of course, she's been on my radar since she kind of like broke Keanu Reeves, and it was like, the moment you were able to like somehow break Keanu Reeves in a role, I'm like, okay, you know what, you are on my list, And then over the past few years, it's like she's been doing like great roles in Blade Runner, Knives Out, most recently with No Time to Die, even though her role was like literally a very small role. She was only in like what, maybe 10 minutes in the movie, and people are like still talking about that character.
Yeah, like that just shows how good she is, that she was that much of like a show stealer.
Yeah. And but yeah, it definitely feels like, yeah, and again, it is very sad, very sad to hear. It was like, oh, it's that they will, the movies being moved to streaming services because they don't have enough faith. But at the same time, like I understand as an actor, it's like I don't want to, do a movie and then suddenly it's like bombs in the thing, bombs at the box office. And speaking of doing horrible in the box office, sadly enough, West Side Story did not do well enough at the box office, making at least over $10 million in their opening weekend, as opposed to probably like maybe $30 million or whatever the projected numbering was. And I kind of figured that it wouldn't do that well in the box office because, one, it's West Side Story. It's a story. It's literally a story that's been done for like over and over again, and even if you watch it on stage, it's like the same story and stuff like that too. It made $15 million. Okay, I thought it made over 10 million, but it definitely felt like the idea of. Hang on for a second. Now I got.
Yeah, I will say, like, West Side Story is one of those movies where, like, I heard about it and I didn't think it was gonna do like crazy numbers in terms of like the box office. And it's interesting because, like, a bunch of my friends on Facebook, like, they would say they went and they went and saw the movie and they think it's amazing, it's great, and that's awesome. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I just don't see this actually doing fantastical at the box office. But it almost feels like it's kind of like a by design kind of thing. Because one of the big things about this movie was that there are no subtitles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like when characters are like, speaking in different, Spanish and whatnot, and it's like, oh, okay, so, no subtitles. And honestly, I'm like, I honestly don't see the problem with including subtitles. I mean, like look at, people who probably watch Squid Game with subtitles. Yeah. Or like, or people who watch anime with subtitles. Like literally when they were coming out with new episodes of Dragon Ball Super, I'm like watching the one that's with subtitles. Like I'm not gonna waste my time waiting for the dub. Like I just want to go ahead and watch it now because one, if I'm enjoying it, so I don't mind reading the subtitles while watching it. Like my eyes can multitask.
Well, yeah, it's like, and also,
but there is a reason for that. Like the director kind of did it by design because he wanted to be like their story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of it had to do with casting as well, because people were talking about how the diverse casting as well, but also people were also telling how Egel, whatever the hell his name is called, how people say that like he was definitely the weakest link, and his name has been been tossed around for the past like couple of years because he's been accused of I think what's it called, sexual not sexual misconduct of like grooming. There we go. He's been accused of grooming like younger people, especially especially when he was older and stuff like that too, and how and Huh?
No, just like, ugh, ew.
Yeah, yeah, and he's been accused of doing that, and and I think and also it has to do with the fact that it's he's like in his 30s and stuff like that too, and oh, he's like 27. I thought he was like in his 30s. Okay, I keep thinking he's like in his 30s and stuff like that too. And like,
Mm.
I'm just so used to seeing like actors who I know. I'm like, yeah, he's probably and like they're like, yeah, they're probably like 30 by now or something like that.
Mm.
But yeah, he's like in his like late 20s, stuff like that too. And he's talking about how and they're talking about how they have like stories about how he was like grooming people when they were like 16, 17, stuff like that too, and it was like
Ugh.
and like giving them like their private Snapchat or something like that, and it's definitely one of those things where it's just like you have that like that sort of like notion of, oh, okay, there is a little controversy behind that actor, and then you read about the reviews, and all of a sudden it's like Ziegler is doing amazing as Maria, and then they were like, oh, but one of the weakest links of the movie was Angel role role, and it's like he didn't really bring what have you, he didn't really bring the pop, and when you have a weak link like that, and people really don't think you know, really don't think he is a good actor is like, oh, okay. He was amazing in Baby Driver because Edgar Wright is an amazing director. He could actually just bring up, he could, uh, Jamie Foxx. I don't see him as a scary villain. He was an amazing scary villain in Baby Driver. The same thing with John Hamm. You know,
Mhm.
uh, Kevin Spacey. Even though
Well, Kevin Spacey can naturally play a villain anyway.
yeah,
Like that's not too hard to do.
yeah, but here I actually felt like he actually could get underneath the skin without really trying. And well, of course, this happened way before his own allegations and stuff like that too. And but here you actually feel like Kevin Spacey is like an actual mob boss in this movie. You
Mm.
know, John Berthel, even though he's in the movie for like maybe 5-10 minutes, you get the sensation that he is there for like as an actual threat.
Yeah. And man, that is such a crime how underutilized he was too.
Yeah, and yeah, but I understand why West Side Story did not do as best as it could in the box office, especially since a lot, and I know a lot of my
Oh, and
Hispanic
also I think I
friends.
figured out his pronunciation. Ansel Elgort.
And Sal Argarth. Okay,
Yeah,
you
I
see,
think that's how it's pronounced.
I have a problem called dyslexia, so I have a minor dyslexia problem, so a lot of these times it does look like a weird way of saying it, so I just say it as best as I could. So
Hey,
Ansel.
I'm an autistic weirdo here, so
Hey, well, hey, it's theater. Hey, we're actors, baby. We're all weirdos.
yeah. But we're all actors here. You know, we all got
Uh-huh.
our stuff. You know, you got the dyslexia, and I got the autism.
Mhm. But yeah, I understand that the movie did not doing well in the box office, and that's because of not only timing. Thanksgiving weekend.
Hmm.
It,
It's a tricky time,
it's a tricky time.
but also it was good they at least did it. They didn't try to also compete with No Way Home as well, because then they would
Yeah,
have been decimated if they did.
I mean, if this was like released, like maybe a month or two later after In the Heights, it probably would have done a little bit more better.
Hmm.
Maybe even in September,
Hmm.
because that was when like nothing was really happening in September. Like aside from maybe Shang Chi and yeah, aside from maybe Shang Chi and Dear Evan Hansen. I mean, Dear Evan Hansen. That's another thing that we're gonna be talking about.
Hmm. Yeah, they would have beaten out Dear Evan Hansen, no problem.
Yeah. They could have done amazingly well in September, but you do it in December where it's like, this some and to know, and of course I understand it being in December. It's award season. It's close to award season. People want to have enough award-winning movies or enough movies considered to be award-winning movies, even if it's like there for like maybe 8 weeks or something like that, and was released released right before the holidays. But yeah, it's sad that it's sad that it didn't do well in the box office, because I do have friends who actually did work on the movie as background actors, so it's kind of like sad, hearing like, oh, I did background work on a Steven Spielberg movie, and it happens to be like and it happens to bomb on the box office. So I was like,
and I will say one thing about Ansel Elgort, like there was actually some signs that he was a weird guy. Around when Baby Driver was coming out, because I remember I was watching some like interviews with the cast, and he was acting so weird with his co-star who plays Darling. I think her name was like Isa Gonzalez.
Yeah, Isaac Gonzalez.
Yeah, and like I'm just watching the interview, and like when those two are around each other, and he acts so weird around her, like he has this sort of like mega crush on her, and he just comes off as like so desperate to want to be with her. And I'm just watching this like kind of like weirded out, like dude, you probably should tone it down a little bit. The cameras are rolling. We're seeing all this.
I mean, it also goes to show you that Oh, and I forgot he's also a DJ under the name And Solo, and apparently that's how his. And I forgot he was in that Divergent series movie. I forgot he was also in that Divergent series film series too. It's like,
oh yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely feels like when you do have an actor who does have like a controversy behind it, sometimes that controversy does help and actually makes people go and see that movie regardless, because they're like, oh,
it's a coin toss for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, it's definitely one of those coin tosses where it's just like, do you really want to see a movie that's controversial because of the actor in the movie, or do you just want to see it just to see how good the movie is? Because the same thing happened last year, or was it early this year? I think it was like either last year or early this year, where the movie Music came out, and Music is Music was horribly represented as an artistic an artistic description, no, an artistic representation of an it was a horrible representation of an artistic person in media, and the character is played like, I don't want to say how she's played like, because it ends up, but she's basically played
like basically a horrible stereotype, essentially.
Yeah, a horrible stereotype, and yet when she's thinking about her music, hence the title, and also hence her name is Music somehow. Which is
like literally it's like the characters from the show You on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, one character's named Love, the other's named 40. Like, okay, why though? Like, yeah, like literally two of the characters, like there are two characters who show up in the second season and then also the third season. One of them is a woman named Love, and her brother is named 40. The number 40. Yeah.
Well, anyway, but
also don't watch the third season. It's a mess. I watched it because I was curious, and it's kind of a mess.
Netflix shows have that thing, but yeah, and yeah, people really didn't. I think people have watched the movie Music because they wanted to see how horrible the movie was, and the same thing with Dear Evan Hansen, where they wanted to see how horrible they made Ben Platt look like a teenager when he's like in his like the same age as Angela Eggart, where he's like in his like late 20s, acting like he's like a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like you have this movie where it's just like there is a little minor controversy with an actor, right? And sometimes the controversy does play out, and it does help the movie because it actually does say, hey, there is a little controversy on the casting. Sometimes it does get people to go and see the casting. When Johnny Depp played Tonto in The Lone Ranger, he was there was a controversy over his casting because they did not get a
Indigenous person.
indigenous person to play Tonto when they have actual indigenous actors who could play that. And the reason why they picked Johnny Depp was because one, he was in Disney's wheelhouse. Two, he was part of the direct. He already was working with the director with the Pirates of the Caribbean movie series. Gore Verbinski did the movie, and two, he can say that he's also indigenous because he has he's like what is it, like 1/8 Native American blood in him or something like that, because I know he says he has like Native American blood in him. And of course that still didn't stop people to go see the movie because one, it's a summer action blockbuster, and two, they wanted to see how horrible the movie was. So it's like
yeah, like I went and saw it and I'm like, it was actually okay. Like it was decent. Like it is what it is essentially.
Yeah.
And I thought Armie Hammer was kind of hilarious. How ridiculous he is.
And then we find out about how and then we find how crazy Armie Hammer is in real life. So it's like
so yeah, makes sense then. It all makes sense now.
It all makes sense. But yeah, it's sad that West Side Story did horrible, but it is what it is because one, they're trying to redo a classic and they're trying to like update that classic into modern times. And one of the reviews,
and also it's one of those things where like they're turning another stage musical into a movie.
Yeah, and to counterpoint this, I just watched Tick Tick Boom just last week, and I don't know the history behind Jonathan Larson. I don't know like his personal history. I didn't know about the struggles he had, and stuff like that too. But I thought it was a well-made movie, especially since I'm not really a musical person, and I don't know a lot of these people coming on stage. I don't know a lot of these people on the screen, especially since a lot of these people in the movie are Broadway actors and who have Broadway experience as an actor or an actress, especially going forward, and especially with something like West Side Story, this has been done rather well with the original movie, and and it's weird because I remember tweeting, or not really tweeting. I remember watching the original movie a few years ago, right during my holiday break, actually. And because I wanted to watch like different like musicals and all that stuff, and I remember posting about I can't wait to see how realistic Steven Spielberg could actually make his new version of West Side Story, because I know Steven Spielberg could actually make it more grittier and more like really grounded in terms of like, okay, this is the 1940s. He probably would be like more emphasis on the racism and all that stuff. But according to one of the reviews according to one of the reviews on the movie, is like they kind of defended it as being a woke version of West Side Story. And first off, that's kind of, that term is very, the term woke is really a stupid term to say, because one, something that's woke doesn't really mean, you keep on using that word, it doesn't mean what you think it means.
Yep.
Because like that's when I hear the word woke, a term to like something that like resonate, like, oh, I mean, like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is woke for something like that, and I just keep on thinking of that scene of The Princess Bride where it goes, you keep on using that word, I don't think it means what you think it means. Because woke doesn't mean what people think it means. Woke just means like literally woke. Like I woke up. Like you literally just woke from like woke is a realization of something.
It's like people basically hijack the term to honestly just kind of make it seem like, oh, it's not white, so it's woke.
Yeah.
It's like, do you have any understanding though of the story as to maybe there's an actual reason for why? Maybe that
Yeah.
not everybody's a white person in this movie. Maybe if you actually paid attention and then just do your reactionary BS so you can get your stupid little views on YouTube or your clicks on Twitter or whatever the hell you call it.
Yeah, I'm actually just reminded of the I forgot what YouTube channel does that, but apparently, like every single time a Marvel thing comes out,
Oh, geeks and gamers, they love doing that shit.
yeah, it's like Hawkeye doing horrible on Disney thing, and it's like and it does like these horrible man manipulation photos of like Jeremy Renner crying, and it's like or uh or Loki drops down viewership in the third week, and it's like I'm like that's really like stupid enough to just like that's just like
Also, not a lot of people tend to rewatch a lot of stuff they literally just watched. They go
yeah.
back and rewatch it later on. They don't rewatch it as soon as they've already finished watching it.
Yeah, and especially when and also that's another thing is like once all these episodes come out, people just start watching it anyway. So it doesn't really matter like if viewership drops in the third week. It's like by the time the sixth episode rolls around or the eighth episode, people probably gotta be watching all the episodes going from the first episode to now, where it's just like okay, it's the eighth episode. All of a sudden, the viewership and all these other episodes are going up because it's the eighth episode, it's the season finale, or is it what have you, and all of a sudden people just start watching it now.
And also because people then probably wait so they can get the free trial, so they can then just go ahead and binge all the stuff they want to binge, at relatively the same time, and then be like, okay, I watched what I wanted to watch. Now I'm done. So I can boom, get rid of that free trial, so I have to pay for it.
Yeah. So
like it's not about saying like, oh, I hate Disney. It's like, no, I'm just trying to save money.
Yeah, and yeah, again, people saying that the West Side Story the West Side Story movie is woke because they have more diverse casting, and again, people are just using the term woke as a way of saying people are just people are divided or divisive. Yeah, people are divisive on the diverse casting, and people are like, when people don't like the casting of something, they're just like, movie is woke for movie now using woke casting or something like that. And yeah, again, I call BS on that, but yeah, it's like,
yeah, it's definitely BS, and it's like, and also too, it's like if you want to understand like the values of that guy who runs Geeks and Gamers, his name's like Jeremy, I think it is. He has like a political YouTube channel it does the same kind of shtick, but with politics. And it's just like right-wing bullshit that isn't meant to be true at all because it isn't. It's just reactionary bullshit where the dude calls shit. It's like just the same made-up bullshit. It's like
yeah.
It's just like and it's like that's clearly like there's a form of indoctrination too. Like you can tell it starts on the Geeks and Gamers page.
Yeah.
Because like when there was that stuff about like Last Jedi, I'm like, like this, like I'm sorry, like it's just not a good movie. It doesn't have to do with being woke or not. It just is not a well-told story.
Yeah.
Like they did every character bad. They did a bad job with Rey. They did a bad job with Finn, and they did a bad job with Poe. They just did a bad job with the characters. Like again, one of the things I saw from a different channel that I feel like does kind of make some semblance of sense actually was when you look at Finn's character in Last Jedi. Doesn't he seem to kind of be portrayed as the stereotypical black comedic character?
Yeah.
And that's the thing though, he wasn't portrayed like that really in Force Awakens. He was a little bit, but he had his really good serious moments.
Yeah, I think what
and then of course he had there was attempt at having a serious moment with him in Last Jedi, but of course that gets ruined. And then, he kind of gets a little more, and it feels like he kind of got stuck in that a little bit for like Rise of Skywalker, but then he kind of had some moments of like, redemption of like not just being the black comedic character. Or then with Poe's character, they essentially make him out in Last Jedi as the fiery Latino who only, acts on impulse or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, what of that was, or like, what of that existed in that character in Force Awakens? Like, honestly, they only made it for that movie because you don't see it in Force Awakens and you don't see it in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So, if anything, that movie, by the narrative of what woke is actually anti-woke.
Yeah. And again, people just use the term woke as just as a catch-all term to say the movie is bad, or
Exactly.
the show is bad, or the game is bad, or what have you. And
exactly, like there are only a few instances where I will say something is bad, and then people will say it's bad because it's woke. But I don't say it's bad because it's woke. I say because I actually took the time to look at it or watch it or play it. Like, for instance, another one, The Last of Us Part 2. I don't think it's actually that good of a story. There's nothing really that new mechanics-wise aside from one or two things. The character they try to introduce as a character is not that interesting. And if anything, is actually goes in an opposite direction of what we saw before. Because the character is so very much of essentially a narcissist. That she puts her own interests and motives first, and everyone around her dies because of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, why should I be interested in a character who even gets called out for being a piece of shit by her own friends? The character just wasn't likable. They didn't have to do with the game being woke or not. You just actually have to, like, if you want people to like this character, there has to be something likable and redeeming about the character. Not just the fact that, oh, this character lost her dad and got revenge. Like, that's just not interesting enough. Because she doesn't seem to actually really change, honestly. She still seems to stay the same kind of person all throughout.
Yeah. And
Sorry on that tangent.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. It actually felt a lot of like this is the type of stuff that that actually does talk about